Hannoun, and today I'm going to be joined by Hablemos MMA podcast host Danny Segura, who's going to help me break down all things UFC 315, headlined by a welterweight title fight between Belal Muhammad, Della Maddalena. We've got a flyweight title fight between Valentina Shevchenko, Manon Fiorot, and much, much more. What's up, Danny? How's it going?
Good. Ready for these fights. It's a very low-key card. I feel like it's been flying under the radar, hasn't gotten much buzz, but the fights are actually pretty good. There's some good matchmaking here, and I would say I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, and I agree that it hasn't gotten that much buzz, and I understand. I believe it wasn't Burns Morales on this card at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Benoit Saint-Denis was supposed to fight Joel Alvarez. Surely those fights would have made it the main card especially a little bit stronger, but it is crazy how much is riding on this main event, right? Like the entire lightweight division and welterweight division seems to have their eyes peeled, especially the upper echelon, on Belal Muhammad and Della Maddalena, because Della Maddalena wasn't even the guy that people expected to be next in line. So in that perspective, you wouldn't think that this fight had so much weight. But literally two divisions are hanging on the outcome of tonight.
Yeah, maybe even three if you want to throw in there 145, because I mean, if Ilia Topuria is not going to get his lightweight shot, maybe he wants to go back down to 45. I don't know. Also, you know, with Jack, if he doesn't win, then all of a sudden Australia and Oceania doesn't have a champion. So maybe Volkanovski doesn't fight Jair and Noche UFC, and instead they have an event over in Australia and fights Movsar Evloev. Who knows? So yeah, a lot riding on the main event, and we'll see how things unfold.
How do you see things unfolding? And I know a lot of it weighs heavily on the outcome between Jack and Belal, but do you think it seems like Islam is his decision making is what's going to impact everything, right? Like whether he goes up to one set. I don't know how I feel about Islam versus JDM though. Like JDM gets I don't know. I guess it depends on the fashion that JDM would win, but I don't know if I'm like clamoring for that fight. I don't know. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, when you talk about champion versus champion, it's usually when two guys have been, or ladies, have been so dominant in their respective divisions, and then they collide because they have no other challenges in their respective weight classes, so they have to look elsewhere to get a badass fight, to get some competitive fight. In this case, like, you know, if JDM were to win, he wouldn't be this long-standing champion that has cleared out the division. I mean, there's a little bit of an aspect of that in the sense that he's done well, but yeah, it wouldn't feel like a super fight per se. But still, 170 for Islam Makhachev, looking to become a two-division champion if the cards do favor him tonight at UFC 315. Still interesting, still big, and I think what comes next would probably be more interesting.
Yeah, and it was funny because when I spoke to Belal leading up to this fight, I'm like, this might be the first time where most people expect you to win, right? Like if you look back at history, every fight he's had in the UFC, he's kind of been an underdog, or not everybody. I don't know I think every one of us in the staff picked him. Like I don't think that's ever really happened where we've all picked him, right? So, and he kind of joked about it. He's like, yeah, get away from me. Like what is going on? I'm not used to this. So how much pressure do you think is on Belal, considering everything we've just spoken about? And the narrative changing where most people, or if not 90% of people, are expecting him to win.
Yeah, a lot of pressures on him because one, he's a big favorite here, right? Two, a lot of people are still talking about how boring he is, this and that, and you know, part of the reason why there's not a ton of excitement around this pay-per-view, and I feel like if anything, that's more of a pressure than being the favorite, because you know, he can't just win, right, to change that narrative. He's got to win, and win decisively, win with a finish, and maybe even have a couple of exchanges there with JDM, because he's been talking a lot about his boxing to kind of just back that up. So yeah, there's a lot of pressure on him, and yeah, also, like, you know, this is a guy that took forever to get his shot at the belt. Obviously not his fault. The UFC didn't really prioritize him, and you know, you can kind of understand that given his style, but he's not a guy like Sean O'Malley. If he were to lose, you know, he's going to find himself soon in an immediate rematch or anything like that. You could very much say, especially considering how many contenders are at 170, if he were to lose here, he can forget about fighting for the belt again. I mean, it's just very, very tough for him. It's you know, stay as champion, or that's it.
It seems like on paper, based off of the odds, they have closed a little bit, and we'll get to them in a second. But it seems like on paper, it's probably his most favorable matchup, hence the odds. I think you're looking at Jack's layoff. You're looking at his fights, people looking at his fights with Basil Hafez and Gilbert Burns. Granted, he keeps popping back up. But stylistically, it seems like most people think he's going to win because of the matchup itself with JDM. Do you agree? Is it simply a striker versus grappler matchup in your eyes, or do you feel like there's a lot more to it?
It's very similar. And I agree, like that Basil Hafez fight, like it was very telling, right? He took the fight on short notice. Newcomer, hadn't been at that level before, and he gave JDM a really tough fight. The fight, I believe, ended in like a split decision. It was very, very competitive. What aspects of that fight or those difficulties that Basil presented can Belal not do? I don't think there's any of them. And then some people would like to point out the Gilbert Burns fight, who is obviously a very talented grappler, and they'd be like, well, look at that fight there, right? He finished him. But people forget, like, Burns was on his way to winning a decision before getting finished. And also, Burns is more of a jiu-jitsu guy than a wrestler. So, yeah, everything points out to be that, like, the best style to beat JDM is Belal style. So, someone that's tough, someone that is good enough on the feet to kind of, exchange it with them a little bit, or at least not be in too much trouble. And at the same time, very dominant wrestling, very good physicality, solid ground control, ground and pound. This is probably one of the worst matchups, if not the worst matchups for JDM at 170.
And cardio, I think, is the key here, because we talked about Basil Hafez, short notice. Gilbert Burns seemed to get a little bit tired, right? He had that little lapse defensively, which obviously caught him with the knee and everything. Belal is known for his cardio. This is a 5-round fight. How much do you expect the layoff to impact JDM? Because people forget that he came off of multiple surgeries, hasn't fought since UFC 299.
Yeah, is this his first 5-rounder in the UFC?
In the UFC, I believe so, yes.
Yeah, that too as well, right? Like, he's not getting his feet wet with a preliminary fight and then jumping into a main event. No, he's straight up going from a big layoff right into a main event, 5 rounds against somebody that's very physical and has good cardio, as you mentioned. That's 100% a factor. And again, all those little things is what causing Belal Muhammad to be a favorite here, which is, as you mentioned before, something we are not accustomed to seeing. But I also feel like moving forward, it's not just respective to the matchup, but I feel like people are starting to come around on Belal, whether they like him or not, in his personality, his style. But like at this point, there's no denying he is very, very good and an elite fighter, right? The dude's the best right now at 170. And I think most people would agree with that, or at least have him high up there at this point. There's no denying him.
Now, Belal keeps talking about his Canelo hands and how he'll stand and strike with JDM. Kamaru Usman calling cap. At the end of the day, he sets up his takedowns with the striking. So maybe we don't need to take his words exactly where he's just going to stand in the pocket and throw down. But part of his game is the pressure, the striking, and then eventually he dips down for the takedown. What do you feel like JDM's keys to victory are? Obviously, he's got very sharp boxing. Doesn't really mix it up too much with the kicks and stuff like that to kind of throw Belal off, keep Belal at bay. But what do you feel like is kind of the game plan? What does JDM have to do to make sure that Belal is unable to implement his game plan?
I think it's very simple. I think it's stuff takedowns and keep the fight on the feet. And if he gets taken down, don't freak out. Stall if you can, right? Don't really try too hard, I guess, to get right back up, because then if he's able to advance to half guard or side control or mount, then you're in trouble, right? So it's keeping calm on the ground, staying very efficient and trying to be very what would be the word that I'm looking for? Trying to be very intentional with his strikes, not just throw strikes to throw strikes. Good uppercuts, obviously, trying to set those up, or knees. Those do well against wrestlers. And I would even have him kind of have a little bit of a lower stance in order to be ready for those takedowns, because they are coming. And on the feet, I don't think Belal can knock him out, and I don't think he can outclass him. Maybe he can make the fight a little bit even, but I think JDM has a big upper hand there. So
And
just try to keep the feet, try to keep the fight on the feet as much as you can.
And invest in low kicks, I feel like, as well. Like, he needs to do something to slow Belal down from that forward pressure. I don't know how much that's something that JDM would want to do. Obviously, kicking up high and stuff is not something you want to do against a wrestler. The knee is what finished Gilbert Burns at the end of the day. But interesting that the odds have gotten tighter. They were like, now Belal, according to BetMGM, is a -190 favorite. I believe he opened up as a bigger, for sure, in the 200s. Really? Can't remember. Yeah. And now JDM is at +160. So money coming in on JDM. Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, there's no doubt that the dude can punch. The dude definitely has a puncher's chance in this one. Like, there's definitely a world where, you know, JDM can knock out Belal. And also, Belal's 36. People forget, like, he is a new face in sort of the title picture because, you know, he wasn't giving his due. But he is 36. So we've seen a lot of athletes around that age recently, like, really have declines. And Belal, although he's a great athlete, he trains very hard. You know, he's still not absent to Father Time and its effects. So, you know, that's one thing. And I also think that a lot of people bet with their heart. So a lot of people just dislike Belal. I want to see him out of the welterweight throne. So they just kind of put money thinking that maybe that'll send something into the universe, and maybe it'll just make the win for JDM that much sweeter. You know, you get to see Belal out, and I'm not saying for me personally, I'm just saying for the haters. Plus, you make a little bit of money as underdog.
Yeah, and we talked about earlier how most of us are picking Belal. Most people think Belal is going to win. But looking at the landscape at 170, if you were to kind of do odds, you don't have to give me the exact odds, just favorite underdog. Belal versus the following, how would you make him a favorite or an underdog versus the following is basically what I'm trying to ask. Belal versus Sean Brady.
Favorite.
Shavkat Rakhmonov.
That was a tough one. I would still say favorite slightly. Almost pick him.
Kamaru Usman.
Favorite by a ton.
Interesting. We'll get to that in a bit. Ian Machado Gary.
Ooh. Still favorite. I'll favor him against anybody right now.
Okay, the last one I was going to say is Joaquin Buckley.
Favorite still, but also, like, that's considering Belal Muhammad now. We'll see as he starts getting these title defenses how he starts looking, because again, 36 in a couple title defenses, that 36 turns into 37, 38. Next thing you know, you're almost 40. So yeah, I mean, right now, today, I favor him against anyone. We'll see in 6 months, a year and a half. I think that could change.
It's how crazy is it that the narrative changed? Because I feel like if I asked you this maybe before leading into the Leon Edwards fight, that's probably wouldn't have been your answer, right?
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, he's proved a lot recently, right? Like, he's definitely gotten some good wins before then, but like, he didn't get quality opponents, right? We did see him against Leon Edwards, but it ended in that weird eye poke situation. And there was always kind of like, he wasn't very convincing. But then you beat Leon Edwards, who was coming off, you know, beating Kamaru Usman twice very dominantly. You're like, oh crap. Prior to that, he had finished Sean Brady. You know, that's definitely it sets off some alarms in terms of like, whoa, I've been underestimating this guy. So yeah, I've always known Belal was good, but I didn't know he was this good.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's kind of the general consensus. Because I remember when he was going up against Gilbert Burns, a lot of people were thinking like that's when the win streak ends as well. Granted, I know Burns' injury, all that stuff.
There was always little things where you could be like, you know, I'm not sold on him. But at this point, like, what is it, 10, 11 fights in a row and beaten? I mean, there's no luck in that. Trust me. There's luck in a fight, maybe two, but not that streak.
No, I agree. He's been putting together some great game plans. And in terms of what's next, if Belal wins, you know, Ian Machado Gary weighed in as a backup. Shavkat, I believe, just recently, maybe today, posted a picture of him. Looks like he underwent another surgery. Oh. So, yeah, don't think he's next. Looking at the landscape, do you think Ian Machado Gary, I know weighing in as a backup means absolutely nothing, because how many times have we seen guys weigh in and not get the next title fight?
Or poor Sergey Pavlovich. I believe he was a backup like 2 or 3 times. Never got his title shot. Colby was a backup, set out for like a year and then got a title shot. And guys, Dana White was like, well, he was a backup. Like, he was a backup. He's got to get the shot. So
randomly popped up in London. That was the most random thing ever. Like, seeing Colby Covington in London. But yeah, like looking at the landscape, 170, obviously Brady coming off of an amazing win against Leon Edwards. We've got Buckley and Usman. Obviously, a lot of heat between Usman and Belal. And Belal even admitted, he said, yeah, all he needs to do is drop that podcast episode and maybe we have a fight. Who do you feel like has the kind of strongest case if Belal should win?
Well, right now, Ian Gary, obviously, he is the backup. I do think that kind of does weigh as something, no pun intended. And, you know, he obviously had a really good win in his last outing against Carlos Praches. Has done a lot of favors for the UFC in terms of stepping up on short notice, and we know how big that is for the UFC. I mean, look at Diego Lopez, the last pay-per-view. I mean, that's a guy that skipped the guy that beat him in his debut, Movsar Evloev, and a lot of it was, yeah, he's exciting and all that, but he also stepped up for the company a ton, and the UFC rewards that more often than not. So I think it's Ian Gary, but this division's so stacked that I wouldn't rule out, like, if Kamaru were to get like a crazy win, like a knockout win, look better than ever, like the biggest fight would be him and Belal, right? Would be way bigger than Ian Gary. So, and you know, Kamaru Usman doesn't have a ton of time left as a top contender. So probably the UFC would want to make that fight and let a young Ian Gary that has all the time in the world kind of sit and wait. But at the same time, if Buckley wins, I've been super high on Buckley. I mean, beating Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington back to back, that might look a little bit better than, you know, beating Carlos Praches and then losing to Shavkat Rakhmonov in a very competitive fight. So I think it's anyone's chance here. I mean, the only person that I would kind of leave out for now would be Sean Brady. And I hate to kind of say that because he is deserving, like beating the former champion and submitting him the way he did. I believe Leon had never been submitted up to that point. That is certainly impressive. But when you have a division this stacked, like, you got to do somebody wrong. Like, there's no going around it. Someone's going to get screwed because they're all deserving. So I think Ian Gary right now is number one, but the result of Buckley and Kamaru Usman could change things.
Yeah, I personally, like, it's all about timing. That's the issue with these things. Like, now our answer could be a lot different in a couple of months. But for me, I think the winner of Usman and Buckley. But again, asterisk around that if Usman can win impressively, because we talk about favors. I mean, he fought Hamza Chimaev on short notice in middleweight, right? Before that, trilogy bout with Leon in the UK. So obviously done some favors. And I think the UFC like Kamaru Usman as well.
Yeah.
I would like to see the winner of that. I mean, Brady called out Ian Machado Gary. He kind of maybe gives me the impression that he deep down inside feels that maybe he won't be next in line, but maybe that's before he knew Shavkat underwent surgery. So yeah, I mean, I would not be against the direction depending on how they win. Winner of Buckley and Usman, and then have.
I actually like that a lot. That suggestion that you mentioned, I think that's the way to go. Make Sean Brady versus Ian Gary, because look, Ian Gary has kind of positioned himself like, oh, if they don't give me a title shot, like they're screwing me over. And that's not entirely the case. Like, yeah, you weren't beaten, you've done favors for the UFC, but you know you are just coming off one win. Prior to that, you lost to Shavkat. The only reason why he's probably still in the conversation is because Shavkat's injured, right? If Shavkat would be game, like I think he would 100% surpass Ian Gary, obviously. So, yeah, I like him versus Sean Brady, and then the winner of Buckley versus Usman to fight for the belt. I think that is a brilliant scenario.
And I just think, like, I think Ian Machado Gary is very talented. I like how active he's been, but just the performances, just I don't know. I mean, he's composed and he fights well, and it, you know, like minus getting hurt at the end against Carlos Prates, that was pretty dominant performance by him, but. I don't know. I feel like beating Sean Brady, like if he can beat Sean Brady, regardless of the manner that he does it, I think nobody can say anything after that. I think that for him will like, because Sean Brady is looking incredible. Yeah, so I think regardless of how he would beat Sean Brady, I think that's enough. And I just think like storyline wise, if Buckley beats Usman, it's going to be an impressive fashion because that's kind of how he wins. And if Usman wins, like you said, I think that's the biggest fight that they could make at 170. But again, it's all going to depend on what we see later on.
Yeah, you know, we're talking about all this, but who knows? Maybe, you know, in 6 months, Islam Makhachev is champion of the division. So we'll see.
Yeah. And yeah, he talks about like, I'm not letting go of the lightweight title if he were to move up and challenge, if JDM were to beat Belal Muhammad. It seems like it would be like the UFC would be doing him really dirty if they forced him into vacating the lightweight title. 4 title defenses, broke the record. Like, I don't know. What do you think of this whole scenario? If Islam does end up moving to welterweight, if JDM beats Belal, do you see him kind of being pressured into letting go of the lightweight title? I don't think so. I think they go interim and he keeps it, right?
Yeah, we'll see. They'll probably go interim and then have him fight at 170. And then if he were to win that belt, then they'll probably have a conversation with him as to like, hey, look, what is it that you want to do? Let's kind of pick and choose here. Because Islam Makhachev and the whole Khabib camp, I love them. I think they're great. They're fantastic. But because they're a Muslim, they do have Ramadan. They don't fight in Ramadan, unlike Belal and Kalaev. And they also don't fight very often. Like these guys are content with fighting once, at most twice a year. So, that in a division, I think it's a little bit problematic. Then you add it to 2 different divisions. Very, very problematic. So unless he's trying to fight minimum 3 times a year, I wouldn't like to see him hold on to both belts. And I don't think it's good business for the UFC, considering how many contenders they have in both weight classes, both very sellable weight classes. So we'll see. We'll see. Again, a lot of what ifs. First, let's see what happens in a few hours. And then, if they book the fight, maybe this conversation has a little bit more weight to it.
Yeah, because, I mean, there's a lot of different narratives in terms of Ilia Toporia's situation. Did he choose to vacate? Was he pressured to vacate? It doesn't seem like he's interested in making 45 anymore. I mean, it's well documented, his weight cuts and stuff like that. But do you, like, moving forward, like, because the UFC have never really spoken, like, flat out, like, we're no longer doing the double champ thing. Like, I feel like it's really depending on who the fighter is, right? Like situation by situation basis. And was it Diego Lopez that first came out and mentioned that? Was it him? Somebody did in an interview. I can't. Like,
I think so. Yeah.
Talking about like UFC are no longer going to allow you to hold on to a title and move up. So I don't know. It's interesting. Like
I think it's not. I mean, with the UFC, there's no hard rules, right? Like, we're never going to do this, and they go ahead and do it. It's probably something they wouldn't rather want, but in certain situations, they'll totally do it. I mean, look, I think, not getting ahead here, but Valentina wins. Maybe we see a champion versus champion fight with Zhang Wei Li, and I don't think she's vacating the 115 title. So, no, expect to see champs in the future for sure. I'd be surprised if we don't.
I agree. And let's transition to that since you brought it up. So a good time to transition to Valentina Shevchenko, Manon Fiorot. I think this is the best fight on the card in terms of rankings, merit, stylistic matchup. I'm not saying the most entertaining, but I'm just saying in terms of like actual fight, that for me is the best fight because I think Manon is as legit of a contender because it's been a minute since we've seen a contender on a long winning streak get the title fight, like a fight, especially that she's a favorite. First of all, are you surprised that she's a favorite?
Yeah, big time. And I do agree with you. This is like the most legitimate fight. You see, JDM is a top contender. There's no denying that. But, he is here because of an injury, because of Shafkat not being able to make it. And in the case of Manon Fiorot, she's like clearly the number one. Like there's no debate on anyone else. This is number one versus the champion. So in terms of that, this is sort of the most legitimate fight on the card. And I am surprised, very surprised that Valentina Shevchenko is the underdog. I went back actually because maybe I was like, maybe I am missing something. Maybe I'm a little bit crazy. Maybe I just haven't really appreciated Manon's game or I don't know, just haven't really seen what most people are seeing. And I went back and saw her performance against Erin Blanchfield, and like she's obviously good. She's deserving of the opportunity, and I do think she's capable of giving a very tough fight to Shevchenko, but in no way would I put her to the favorite. So no idea what the odds makers are saying, but it is true. Shevchenko enters a title fight as the underdog. I don't know if this is the first time. I believe every single time against Alexa Grasso, she might have been the favorite. No?
I'm going to have to go look back. But, I mean, listen, I find it odd. Look, I'm high on Manon. I've followed her career for a very long time. I did pick her to win.
You also couldn't pronounce her name perfectly. So
that too. That's why. But, there are certain fighters, the Khamzat Chimaevs, the Ilia Toporias. Granted, I did pick Volkanovski over Ilia Topuria. I felt weird doing that, but I was like, Volk is so freaking good that I don't see him losing. But obviously, Ilia did what he did. But Ilya, Hamzat, Manon, there are certain people that I've covered like before pre-UFC that I find it hard to pick against. So that was my reasoning. But am I surprised that she's a favorite? Absolutely, especially after the way Valentina looked against Alexa in the trilogy, right? Because there are times like if she was coming off of the second fight and then going into this one, I can understand it a bit more. But looking as dominant as she did in the trilogy against Alexa and her being an underdog, it's like very strange. So according to BetMGM, Manon is a -135 favorite. Valentina +110. I think the odds have kind of been like that throughout, so it's not like they moved too much. But yeah, interesting.
I think she was a bigger underdog. I think at least on a book that I saw, she was at +125. So probably people that's people putting money on Shevchenko as they should. If you ever get Shevchenko plus money, like you have to put money on it.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So I picked Manon, but it's like it's almost inviting people to. I'll tell you what though, that for me, like striking wise, in terms of pure technique and ability, I lean Valentina for sure.
100%.
Yeah, I just think Manon is a lot stronger than people think, and I think her strength throws a lot of people off. It threw Erin Blanchfield off. I think it's going to throw Valentina Shevchenko off. If Manon Fiorot can get into grappling exchanges, she can get into the clinch, I think she will give Valentina problems. And I think that's her key to win. Standing on the outside and striking with Valentina is not going to win her that fight, because when she fought Rose Namajunas, like Rose gave her problems. Rose is a lot smaller. Rose obviously an amazing striker. And I hate that she went up to flyweight, but that's a conversation for another time. But she gave Manon some problems on the feet. It was competitive, very competitive throughout. But I just think Manon is so physically strong that I think it could throw off Valentina. So if she can mix in some grappling, if she can get the fight in the clinch, granted, I know Valentina has some very good Muay Thai, I think that's where Manon wins. It's not going to look pretty in any shape or form, in my opinion, if Manon gets her hand raised. But that's where I feel like she's going to win. How about you? Like, where do you kind of feel like the keys to victory for either fighter are?
I just think Valentina is just better everywhere. And you talk about the strength and stuff. I do think that she's going to be the bigger and the stronger fighter in there. But we're talking about Valentina that like fought Juliana Pena, that fought Amanda Nunes twice. And you could make the case that, she beat her in both outings. And there's nobody stronger right now in women's MMA, maybe Kayla Harrison, but than Amanda Nunes. So I don't think the size is going to be that much of a factor. I do think it's going to be in the favor of Manon, and she's going to be able to lean on that in certain situations. But I don't think it's going to be a determining factor. Like, I was looking at Manon's fight against Erin Blanchfield, and like she leaves her head straight up in some of these exchanges, even closes her eyes and stuff. I mean, those are mistakes that that was like maybe like 15 years ago, for 20 years ago for Valentina Shevchenko. Like, Shevchenko is just so much more advanced. I don't see a world where Fiorot uses her size advantage and can hold her down for 25 minutes. I don't think that's the case. I think Shevchenko is faster, more technical, a more well-rounded fighter. Look, Tayla Santos had a competitive fight, right? And she's a little bit bigger. She was able to use her size, but she's also a very credentialed grappler. So I was baffled by the odds, and that's why I had to go back and look at some of Fiorot's fights to be like, what's going on here? And it just confirmed what I already believe. Like, Shevchenko is a much better fighter. I think the fight will be competitive. I think the days of Shevchenko going in there and starching people like she did against Jessica I, or being a minus 1,200 favorite, I think those days are over. But she's still much better than all the other girls if you add up all the MMA points per se.
I think that's fair. I'll say this: if Valentina wins, I'm not going to be surprised. I'll put it that way. But I don't know. I do see a world where Manon can get this done. But again, the one thing I worry about is the cardio. 5 rounds, the pace she's going to have to put to find success against Valentina. I don't know if she has the cardio to keep up with for 25 minutes. That's what I'm going to say, because it's going to have to be a lot of clinching. Because standing on the outside with Valentina, I don't think is the way to win for her. I think Valentina will get into a flow state, maybe get into cruise control. But if she can make this ugly, if she can clinch up, if she can try to grapple her and just wear her down that way, use her physicality, I see a world where she wins. Can she do it for 5 rounds? I don't know. But either way, for Manon to get her hand raised,
I'd be surprised if Manon wins.
Okay, we'll see. Well, we're gonna find out in a couple.
I'll leave it as that. I hear you, but like I just don't see it. I don't agree with what the narrative is out there, with what people are saying. I could be wrong, and maybe I'll look
I don't know what they're saying.
Hours.
That's the thing. I don't know what I don't know what the reason behind her being a favorite, like in people's eyes. I'm just saying it based off of kind of my analysis. I don't like really know what people are thinking in terms of having her as a favorite. Do they think that Valentina's time is up? Manon's on a long winning streak. Maybe sometimes we tend to look at that stuff, but I agree. I think it's crazy that Manon's a favorite. I'll admit.
Yeah, look, if you're trying to bet out there, I'll say Shevchenko by decision. I do see it tough for Shevchenko to finish Fiorot because she's so tough and she's so much bigger and so much more physical. But outpointing her, like, yeah, she's far more skilled, I think, and I definitely see a clean decision win for Shevchenko.
That would be plus 200 if you're doing Valentina by decision. For me, if Manon would be a decision in my eyes, plus 100. So I think Manon is going to have her success early. And I think depending on how Valentina reacts to it. So if Valentina wins, I feel like it'll be a bit of a rally. Not as in she'd be losing dominantly, but...
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. I think she could lose the first round, just kind of feeling Manon out and Manon, maybe being a bit too excited, being her first title fight, etc. I can see her maybe dropping the first round, but after that, like, I just don't see a world where Fiorot finishes Shevchenko, and then in 25 minutes of fighting, like, who will prove to be the better fighter? I think that's Shev.
49-46 is your scorecard?
Yeah, sure. Let's go 49-46.
Well, it seems like both fighters
49-46 and 148-47. There's going to be a round that you're going to be like,
Well, it seems like both fighters are eyeing the Zhang Weili super fight. Looking at the landscape of flyweight, do you think that's the correct move, regardless of the winner? Zhang Weili's next.
Probably.
I guess depends if Manon wins. There's still, we got Natalia Silva and...
Yeah, if Manon wins, no. I don't want to see a super fight. If Manon wins, no. And poor Verna Jandiroba, right? Like, you always forget about her, man. Look, I think you do skip Verna if Valentina wins. It's time to see a super fight. Like, I don't want to come off as disrespectful towards women's MMA because there's obviously a line there of, like, misogyny and stuff in terms of, like, a lot of the critics from, like, the fan base and stuff. But, like, let's keep it 100. And I'm a big fan of women's MMA, but women's MMA in the last few years has sucked. Like, it really has. Like, like, name one big fight. Like, ever since Amanda retired, things have kind of just deflated, and nobody has. I guess maybe that trilogy against Grasso and Shevchenko, that kind of spiced things up a little bit. It was in a big stage. The fights were good. But outside of that, like, who's been making, like, a big statement? Who's been headlining pay-per-views and stuff like that? Like, the fights have kind of been a dud, and I do feel like we need to spice things up, and you do that with super fights, like a fight between Shevchenko and Zhang Weili. It might not be a blockbuster, and bringing all the casuals and stuff, but for the hardcores, that's a treat, and it'll be a fun, super high level fight. So I think you do that fight if Shevchenko wins for sure.
Yeah, and again, I feel bad. I would feel bad for Verna Jandiroba, but after Zhang Weili beat Tatiana Suarez, considering all of Suarez's hype and stuff like that, I think at least from that end, it would warrant it. And in terms of Valentina Shevchenko, looking at the landscape, a flyweight, if she beats Manon, Blanchfield has a fight with Macy Barber, and then if Natalia Silva, there are options, I guess, but I don't think it's like the worst thing in the world if they went ahead with that fight. But
yeah. No, I mean, there's not a clear contender that will get screwed at 125. No. At 115, yes, Verna's clearly the number one contender, but we know how the UFC works, and that is a badass fight. So I'm so sorry, Verna. Please forgive me.
I mean, speaking of flyweight and implication stuff, Alexa Grasso and Natalia Silva obviously could be a number one contender fight depending on what happens in the fight right after them. What do you think of this matchup? Do you like the matchmaking? Obviously, a big step up for Natalia Silva, and for Alexa, makes sense. I don't, after a trilogy bout with Valentina, I don't think if Valentina emerges victorious that she's going to be in that title picture soon. But what do you think of the matchmaking in general?
I like the matchmaking, but I did want to see Maycee Barber versus Alexa Grasso. I've been, I don't get sent out too often to events, but the events that I do get sent out, for whatever reason, Maycee Barber fights on that card. Like, I always cover her fights for some reason. And every single card, I always ask her about Alexa Grasso because she's always calling her out. And yeah, she was calling her out because she was the champion. But I got to a point where, like, there was so many call outs and so many fights that I'm like, wait, are you calling her out at this point because she's just the champion and you want the belt, or is there something else? And she was like, no, regardless, belt or no belt, I want to fight her. And Alexa's camp, they don't do much media. They don't like to say much. They're very like vanilla with their interviews a little bit. They don't like to make any bold statements or whatever. But I know there's something there. There's something there with Maycee Barber that they don't fully appreciate, the fact that she says that she would have won that fight, this and that. And I've talked to her coach, and her coach has said, Alexa Grasso's, that she entered that fight injured, this and that. So I think that would have been a really fun fight. And it might have gone not ugly, but there would have been like some fun tension. So I would have gone that route, but this is not a bad plan B with Natalia Silva, who's clearly deserving of a big name, and watch out. Like, she might be the future of this weight class. We'll see what happens in a few hours, I guess. But this is a big fight. And we talk about, Farah, we talk about the, what happens if Shevchenko wins, then maybe the fight with Zhang Weili, this and that. But something that we're forgetting is that Alexa Grasso is the face of Guadalajara. If you make a poster of MMA Guadalajara, that is Alexa Grasso. She is massive, pretty big in the Mexican market. She is from that city. Like, she trained, her gym is there. So I think we're also forgetting about her power as well in this whole title picture. I think if she were to win, whether it's against Fiorot or against Shevchenko, and do the fourth fight to kind of settle things, because remember, they're 1-1-1. I don't think the UFC, I think the UFC would really consider her getting her a title shot in her home city in Guadalajara for Noche UFC here in September. So watch out for that. Watch out for that. I think Alexa, if she were to get a victory here, which I see it tough, but if she were to get a victory here, she could have a big say into what happens next in the title picture at 125.
Interesting. And yeah, you just alluded to that. She is an underdog according to MGM, a plus 200 underdog against Natalia Silva, minus 250. Are you surprised with those odds, or?
I would maybe like them to be a little bit more closer, but I do think, objectively speaking, Natalia Silva should be the favorite. I went back again and looked at some of her tape, because I'm like, wait, how is she that much of a favorite against someone who, is even with Shevchenko, right? And was just the champion. So I went back and looked at some of her fights, and yeah, she is very good. And then she knows how to fight. She knows how to manage fights very well too. That's something that, a lot of young people coming up maybe don't have that perfected, and you perfect that better more as you become champion and get those 5-round experience. But yeah, Silva is great. She hits hard. She's got good striking. She manages distance very well. This is a very tough fight for Alexa. I do think Silva should be the favorite here, but I think those odds should maybe be a little bit closer than what they are right now.
And before I let you go, well, Natalia Silva by decision is minus 160. Did you pick her to win, or did you pick Alexa?
I don't even remember. I think I picked Alexa. I'm not quite sure. Let me check on the staff picks. I think I picked Alexa, but I watched some footage, and then I was kind of doubting my pick. I was like, ooh, yeah. Let's see who I picked here. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I picked Alexa. But like, I might as well change my pick right now. I do think Natalia Silva should be the favorite. However, if you are a betting person, a betting individual, Alexa Grasso by decision. I think it's money. Look, Alexa doesn't really submit people. I mean, yeah, she submitted Shevchenko, but like in general, she doesn't really submit people, and she doesn't knock out people either. Like people talk about her great boxing, this and that, and she does have great boxing, but it's more of a volume type thing, and she doesn't have really that killer instinct. I don't think we see a finish here. Alexa also has an amazing chin, very tough to submit as well. So this is going by decision, and I do think the odds should be closer. What is Grasso by decision?
Plus 275.
Oh, I think that's so worth it. You parlay that, and like I think you can get a lot of value from it.
All right. Well, Danny, I'll let you go now. I appreciate you joining me. And yeah, fights are about an hour actually, not in 20 minutes. So still got time. But I appreciate you joining me.
When do the fights start?
Sorry, so I'm in my time zone. So 6:30 p.m. Eastern.
Okay, if you want to, I can stay the full hour. I thought they started at 6. Because I have to walk my dog because then I'm locked in on play-by-play. So and then my dog won't be able to go out till like midnight. So
let me double check.
Yeah, I can stick around maybe 10 more minutes, 15 more minutes.
Cool, yeah, because we can move on to Jose Aldo, but let me double check that so I don't do you dirty. But I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah. So it's at 6:30 p.m. Eastern.
Okay. Yeah, that works.
All right, we're good. So yeah, Jose Aldo, Ayman Zahabi, weird matchmaking. I think I just read a headline from MMA Fighting. I don't know if this was their own interview. So if it is, I'll check that in a second. But Jose Aldo saying basically, like, what am I doing at bantamweight? Is basically what the headline of that. I agree at this point. Like fighting, yeah, like no disrespect to his opponents, but Jonathan Martinez, Mario Bautista, Ayman Zahabi, yeah. What are you doing at bantamweight? Do you agree?
I mean, no, I don't necessarily agree. It's just, what are you doing in general fighting? Like if I straight up was Jose Aldo, it looks like he doesn't need the money. I'm not sure, but you know, if I make a return and literally look like $1 million against Jonathan Martinez, the crowd goes crazy. I mean, it was something out of like a Netflix series, right? That return. And then all of a sudden you get matched up against Ayman Zahabi and Mario Bautista. I'd be like, what are we doing here? Like, should I just go back to retirement? Like,
but why? Like, what is your theory? Like, why? Why is he getting matched? Like, he's.
I don't know, because the matchmakers suck. I don't know. I praise them when they do great matchmaking, but like the way they're matchmaking Jose Aldo is horrible. Like, why didn't we get like Jose Aldo versus Henry Cejudo, Jose Aldo versus Dominic Cruz, Jose Aldo versus Sean O'Malley would be such an amazing fight. Bump him up to 45, Jose Aldo versus Josh Emmett. I mean, there's so many good fights for him.
Dude, even Rob Font or something. Like, I feel like there's more value in any of the other matchups than, and that is, again, no offense to any of the other guys that he's been matched up with, but it literally seems like they could have gone 100 different directions. Like, I don't, what's going on?
Yeah, because Jose Aldo's at a point right now where, like, you know, he's not necessarily a quality gatekeeper in the sense that, like, oh, you know, if you beat Adesanya, like, you know, Nasruddin Imavov knocked him out, like, you're not going to knock out Jose Aldo. You're not going to sub him. The best you can do is maybe squeak out a boring decision, because that's the way you beat Jose Aldo. Even Merab, who's the best bantamweight right now, had to do that. And he was heavily criticized for it. And at that time, you know, Dana White really like went on Merab, and like people hated Merab. People forget that. Merab is cool now and is great at social media. And I love Merab. But people forget at some point, like, he was hated. And a lot of it was due to that performance. So like, you're either setting up future contenders to lose or to be hated on and look like shit. Look at Mario Bautista. I would say his stock actually dropped after beating a legend and former champion in Jose Aldo. So, you know, what are we doing here? Just put him in fun fights, put him in nice firefights, do the Peter Yan rematch. I don't know. There's so many fun fights for him, and they've literally gone out of the way to choose the worst possible matchups. I don't know what the hell's going on. And if I were actually present, you know, and I hope this gets asked at you know, the post-fight presser, like, win or lose to Dana White, like, what's sort of the reasoning behind the matchmaking here? Because there has been a lot of criticism, and I'm sure the UFC has heard this. So like, what's going on here? Yeah, like, I don't understand at all.
Okay, so he said this at the weigh-in show, actually. So he goes, I think I've reached a point in my career that it makes no sense to keep forcing the cut and take taking fight after fight. I love fighting. This is what I like, but it's best to do it at featherweight.
Yeah, look, give me Josh Emmett versus Jose Aldo. Give me Jose Aldo versus Dan Ige. Give me Jose Aldo versus Calvin Kattar. Even Jose Aldo versus Jair Rodriguez. Come on. There's so many fun fights. There's so many fun fights for him. But unfortunately, he came back from retirement and now we've used up 3 of his fights. I don't know how much he has left, but like we've already wasted a year and a half of like quality, still relatively close prime Jose Aldo, which is a treat. Whenever you get to watch him, is a treat.
Yeah, and Goes just suggested Cub Swanson. He said loser retires. Like there's literally a million.
Did he retire already? No? Am I tripping?
He retired, but it's kind of like I'll fight if it's kind of like
yeah. Give me Jose Aldo versus Cub. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's just and this is now a featherweight fight between him and Ayman Zahabi. So what does it even do for Ayman Zahabi himself? Like, yeah, okay, you're fighting Jose Aldo, sure, but it's like, why? And then the most random, and it's in Montreal. Like, what are we doing here? Like, why is Jose Aldo in Montreal fighting Ayman Zahabi?
It's so dumb.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to imagine where his motivation is, like in terms of taking a fight like that. He is a -190 favorite. Ayman Zahabi is a +155 underdog. I think that's fair, right?
Yeah, very fair. I have a hard time seeing Jose Aldo lose this one. In fact, there is, I don't know what's on your end, but I've seen Jose Aldo like +400 to get a TKO. I like that very much.
+375 here. Yeah.
Okay. I like that. I don't think Ayman is as durable as Mario Bautista or as durable as Jonathan Martinez or as durable as Merab Dvalishvili, and at 145, where Jose Aldo has a little bit more power, and I believe he missed weight too.
Yeah, other way now.
He's due for a finish. He hasn't gotten a finish since finishing Renato Moicano in 2019. I think he's due for one. So I don't think that's a bad call.
Yep. And yeah, I think featherweight is the right move for him. Why would you cut that much weight for these fights of all fights? Like, it's just, what are we doing?
Yeah, here? It's so dumb. It's so dumb. And Ayman Zahabi has only lost twice. One by knockout and one by decision. And that knockout was against Ricardo Ramos.
Yeah, no, I remember that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, he's a tough guy, but I don't think that's crazy to think.
Yeah, depends. It all depends on what kind of motivation Jose Aldo has. Like, what kind of Jose Aldo is going to come out. Like, Ayman's good. He can. I think his striking's underrated and whatnot. But like, Jose Aldo on the feet is still very, very good. I think he should just, because I'm sure Ayman Zahabi is looking at the blueprint of how these guys have beaten Jose Aldo, like not standing the outside and not trading the pocket, right? It's a lot of clinching. It's a lot of stacking him against the cage. You're not really going to get him down, but a lot of that. And if we see another one of those fights, if Jose Aldo gets just kind of stuck in the fence and stuff like that, it's like, man, that's going to be unfortunate. But yeah, I guess depends on where his motivation is. But rounding up the main card is Benoit Saint-Denis and Kyle Pripolek. Again, speaking of random, very random, like I get that Kyle's Canadian. Benoit's a -1,600 favorite, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I've been busy these last few days dealing with some things, but I haven't, I don't know who his opponent is. I know he's like 35 or something like that, and he's like 18-8 or something. What's his record?
Yeah, 18-8.
Yeah, so he's got some experience, but man, that 35 number and fighting a guy that's in the rankings and a guy that's very physical. Again, this is a very ignorant pick because I haven't seen what this guy brings, what his opponent brings, but also just seeing the odds. I mean, I think Benoit Saint-Denis should get here like a finish, and also a lot of pressure on him. People forget that too. Like, people think like, oh yeah, he should like walk over him. And yeah, that's true. But think about this. He's also on a 2-fight losing streak. He got finished in one of those fights, or in both.
Yeah, it was a stoppage.
In both. Yeah, finished in both. And now he's fighting a 35-year-old, that nobody knows. Imagine if he were to lose this one, all of a sudden he's 0-3 with 2 finishes. And
this would kill him.
35-year-old, like that nobody knows. I mean, his stock at some point, like being considered like a potential future face of French MMA, I mean, that's all out the window, right? Like at that point, you're just fighting for your career after that. So, yeah, a lot on the line for Saint Denis, and props to him for taking this type of fight. You know, like very little to gain. I guess we bounce back, but yeah.
Yeah, well, Kyle used to be in the UFC. He went 0-2. Has had a bit of an up and down career. Obviously, racked up a couple of wins. He's on a 2 or 3 fight win streak right now, I believe. Obviously, different level competition, regional shows and whatnot. But yeah, you mentioned he's 35. Benoit was very highly touted. Benoit and his team were telling me that, if he beat Dustin Poirier, it was going to be title shot for him. That's how highly the UFC thought of him.
Yeah.
After he loses to, he had some success against Dustin. The whole staph infection was a big narrative. So then he gets his headliner show in Paris against Renato, and that ends up being a beatdown. Obviously not the result that he was anticipating. So yeah, like a ton of. Do you see those pictures that people put up speculating that he could have staph again? Do you see those?
I did not.
Oh man,
does it look legit?
I mean, like, I don't. Who knows with social media these days what's real and what's not, right? But like,
yeah, you think it's like an AI staffer?
I don't know. Like people can have a sense of humor online, but no, it looks. Yeah, we should have probably pulled out one of our own pictures to check instead of AI.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks like there's something on his form. But that would be crazy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be nuts. But he should get the win here. I would stay away from it though, betting wise. Like
he has to. Like I mean, minus 1,600. When's the last time somebody was that big of a favorite? Like
probably Peyton Talbot versus
True. But Barcelos is solid. I know. And like Benoit, I think he's done more in the UFC than Peyton Talbot has done. But I think he just looked so good against Cameron Simon that people assume. But yeah, minus 1,600. Individual odds by submission is minus 110. That's kind of like the highest prop. And then you got plus 125 by knockout, and then plus 550 by decision. So it's like leaning towards a finish. What do you see here?
Don't touch that fight. Okay. Don't touch it.
Nope.
Just enjoy it. Don't bet on it. That's my advice.
Yeah, minus 1,600 is wild. But yeah, I think this is a good time to let you go before we dive into other stuff. But I appreciate you joining me, guys. Danny will be on the play-by-play, so make sure to follow that and everything he's going to be writing down. So thank you, Danny. Appreciate you joining.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's before we wrap up, Goes, if you can hear me, you can jump on. There he is, right away. What's up, Goes?
No, not much. I was laughing at Danny's last prediction there.
Well, minus 1,600 is crazy, though. It's actually like crazy.
Yeah,
I get it, though.
I always try and make it like other sports, and basically, if this were football, they'd be saying this team's gonna win like 60-0. Like that's so high in a sport where no matter what, the guy on the other side of you is somewhat dangerous. So. I don't know. Very, very high.
A lot to gain for Kyle as well. Like, he has nothing to lose. I'm sure he's looking at this like, I have nothing to lose. So, I mean, Benoit's good. Like, he's a very talented fighter. But man, that loss to Renato, the amount of damage he took. I know he took a lot of damage in that loss to Capoeira in his UFC debut, but he bounced back pretty fine from that. Went on a really good win streak, finished everybody until he fought Dustin Poirier. Had some success against Poirier. No shame in losing to Dustin Poirier. But then, gets beaten down by Renato Moicano. And he revealed that he didn't even have a head coach. He said he didn't have a head coach for his fight against Renato. He said that's all sorted now. But yeah, I think in terms of looking up and down the card, a ton of pressure on Benoit Saint-Denis. I'd say Benoit and Belal are probably the two fighters that have the most pressure tonight. What do you think? Alexa Grasso, you could throw in as well.
Yeah, I like that one too. Alexa Grasso, when you think about see, that's what's so funny about this card, Farah, is like, it's not the sexiest card on paper, but the drama behind and the storylines behind everything that could possibly happen and set up future cards is pretty insane. And that's somebody in Alexa Grasso where if the cards kind of fall in her favor in certain ways, she could be in a pretty decent position. And I'm with Danny. I actually picked Alexa. And then in the middle of the week, I thought, well, wait a minute. Am I kind of homering a little bit? Is this so what have you done for me lately scenario? I went back and I went, oh, man, I might have made the wrong pick. I'm not sure. But, all these fights, I know I said it's not the sexiest fight card, but I think the fights are going to deliver themselves. I think they're going to actually be pretty good scraps.
Yeah, and it's a lot of implications. Like it's not we don't know about the buys anymore these days, but probably won't deliver the craziest buys or if anything. But like the implications, like I spoke with Danny earlier about 170, 155, everything that could or could not happen with a Belal win, pretty wild. I think a lot of people are going to have their eyes on this fight purely because of the outcome and what it could do for the rest of the division. But we talk about pressure. If I go down in the card, because I do want to talk about other people, Mike Malott, I mean, he had a lot of hype. Looked like he could be the guy who could be the face of Canadian MMA because he was really selling it, right? Like you see the way he gets the crowd going and stuff. Like this is a guy who wants to be the face of Canadian MMA, especially that Canadian MMA could really use a face after George St. Pierre retired, after Rory McDonald retired. He ends up having that loss to Neil Magny, which he was kind of dominating, but ends up losing, getting tired. And now he has Charles Radke. I believe Mike Malott's a favorite. Let me go down. I'm pretty sure he is.
He's
minus 210. Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty good, sizable favorite, considering what he's kind of gone through. I thought actually it would be a little bit lower, but he had the hiccup, but he strikes me as a guy who has a good head on his shoulders, a guy that's going to come prepared. And he also strikes me as, sometimes you get a person that loses a fight and they say all the wrong things. I feel like this is a guy that said all the right things. And I do believe that he's going to turn things around.
Yeah, I mean, look, Charles Radke is dangerous. He trains with Belal Muhammad, so obviously he's going to gain a ton of confidence being in that camp with those guys. He had the loss to Carlos Pratis, but no shame in that, right? So, yeah, I mean, Malott's probably a bigger favorite than I expected, but this would be a solid win for him on his resume. And I actually really like the matchmaking. I think Radke's been very fun in terms of the buildup of this fight. And I do expect Malott to get a very loud pop from the crowd. So this is good matchmaking, in my opinion. And even this is a prelim fight, right?
It should be, yeah.
Yeah, I think this should have been on the main card instead of Saint Denis and Pripyat, but that's just my personal opinion.
That was unfortunate what happened with that one. I'm glad we didn't lose Benoit Saint Denis, but at the same time, it's like, does it still hold up to where it should have been on the card? Probably not. I could agree with you. Like maybe do that little switch, right?
Yeah. Especially, I mean, he was fighting Joel Alvarez. That was definitely worthy. That's like a banger main card opener. But switching opponents, yeah, I guess that's going to come down to like people not knowing too much about Kyle. He was 0-2 in the UFC, him being such a massive underdog. But hey, who knows? Maybe it can come out and pull off what would be statistically one of the biggest upsets in UFC history, right?
Yeah, that'd be nuts.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, I was like doing this with whoever kind of my co-host is. Your guess for performance of the night and fight of the night. Like if you can give 4, maybe like 3 like bonuses and then 1 fight of the night, or however you see this going.
See, this is going to be a little tough because I actually think the fight of the night is going to be Shevchenko and Fiorot, but I don't know that it's going to be as appeasing to everybody what you're going to be watching, where you're going to be on the edge of your seat. But I think when you look at technique and strategy, I think that's going to be the one to kind of watch out for. But I don't know that I could give it that. So I'm going to say for performance, I don't know if there'll be a fight of the night, but I bet you Jose Aldo gets it done in pretty exciting fashion. So I'm going to go with him with 1. Benoit Saint Denis, look at the odds. They're telling you something's probably going to happen, and it's probably going to be nuts. And even if it goes the other way, that'll probably be nuts as well. So I think one of those two will probably take 1. Another fight that I'm really looking forward to on this card, but I just don't think it's going to be that type of fight, is Jasmine Jasudavicius.
I was about to say she deserves a shout out. Like, for sure. I mean, that. I know Jessica Andrade has not had the recent results, and she's a former champion, so her name still holds value. And it seems like beating Jessica Andrade does big things for you. I mean, look at Natalia Silva. She drew Alexa Grasso after beating Jessica Andrade. So definitely big things for Jasmine if she can beat Jessica Andrade, and we can throw her name in the picture and everything that Danny and I were talking about earlier. So for sure, especially if she can look impressive. But Yeah, what were you gonna say? That this could be a fight of the night in your opinion, or a performance? Or
I think it could be a fight of the night, but I don't know that it's going to have the pop that would say, give me a bonus. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of those are like that. So I'm going to say Valentina gets one. I'm going to say Aldo gets one. By the way, that was hilarious. You two with Valentina and Manon, because you're both making really good points, but at the same time, I don't know. She's 12-1, but I kind of get. I mean, she has size on her, and when you think about Valentina and the ways that she's lost to
yes,
Amanda Nunes, a lot of people don't really point to Amanda Nunes was the more tactical fighter. A lot of people were saying, man, she was just kind of throwing a lot harder. She was just kind of bullying her a little bit. And I think Manon can do a lot of those types of things in this fight. It's can Valentina kind of solve that puzzle, be active, move around, stay out of range. She's kind of slowed down a little bit. So you both were making great arguments. So you know what? That's going to be my fight of the night. I'll say Aldo gets another one. And I'll give the last one to Malat.
okay, those are good choices. I'm going with Belal and JDM as fight of the night. The reason being, although I did pick, I picked Belal to win, but I just think JDM is so tough. I think he's gonna have some moments on the feet. He pops back up. He's very hard to keep down. So if he can stay dangerous throughout the 5 rounds, I think even if it's a 49-46 type of outcome for Belal, I think that JDM is going to be very game for the 5 rounds. He's a dangerous fighter. And I think out of as bad of a stylistic matchup as I think this is for him, I think he could be the most dangerous throughout a 5-round fight out of all the other opponents outside of Shafkat. I'm not out of all the opponents, sorry, that Belal's fought, not the opponents that he has coming up. Out of all the opponents that Belal's fought, I think he can provide the most danger throughout a 5-round fight. But I am picking Belal to win, and I do feel like he's going to implement his game plan. I just think JDM is so tough and so game that he's going to keep us like on the edge of our feet throughout the fight. And this could win fight of night. So that's my pick.
Yeah, I think Belal cannot take his eyes off his opponent for even a second. Like he has to concentrate that whole fight. Don't think that just because this guy, stepped in, this is a tough fight. Like everybody, I think it was Gilbert Burns. We interviewed him last week. And he was saying, surprisingly, this is one of the best guys he's fought. And he's fought everyone, right, in this division. So I really think it'll be a real competitive fight. And I hope Belal pays attention because there's a lot riding on this. And Belal strikes me as a guy that may not get an immediate rematch if things don't go his way, right? It's hard for him to get the first one. Can you imagine that second one? So a lot riding on this card for him.
Oh, 100%. The whole talk of he's been asked about Islam 1,000 times, and all of us start the question the same way. I know you've been asked a million times, but we ask him anyway. So it's like that and the Kamaru podcast thing. The Kamaru podcast thing, he seems to enjoy talking about. The Islam thing, probably not so much because he understands that the Islam fans or actually, you know what? A lot of people want to see Islam and Ilya Taporia. So maybe some people are actually rooting for Belal so they could see Islam and Ilya Taporia. If you're an Islam fan, you want the double champ. If you're an MMA fan in general, you probably want to see Islam and Ilya, and that will only happen, I guess, if Belal wins. So yeah, a lot riding on this fight in terms of 2 divisions, but this is what makes this card so exciting. Maybe, like you said, not the sexiest on paper, but implications-wise, a lot going on. So going to be a fun one, and it's going down in less than half an hour. So I'll let you go so you can get prepped. Don't forget, guys, Georgian Goes, join them for the watch-along at 8 p.m. Eastern. We've got Mike Bond on site in Montreal. Danny on play-by-play. We've got you covered on MMA Junkie. I'll be doing some write-ups as well. So thank you guys so much for